Today, we're diving into a complex and multifaceted issue, the targeting of the Punjabi community in Canada. This topic spans historical, political, social, and cultural dimensions, so let's break it down. From diplomatic rows to social media storms, the Punjabi community often finds itself caught in a web of suspicion and scrutiny. We're going to unpack these issues, examine the historical context, and explore how this community navigates the challenges they face in contemporary Canada. Buckle up, because we're about to dissect a narrative that's often oversimplified and riddled with misinformation. All right, let's talk geopolitics, but like on a human level, Because when India and Canada go head-to-head, it's not just diplomats exchanging stern words, it's the Punjabi community caught in the middle. We saw it explode in 2023, accusations flying, tensions soaring. Suddenly, everyday conversations about back home were laced with this unspoken tension. See, the heart of the issue is the Sikh independence movement, the demand for Khalistan. It's a deeply sensitive, historically charged topic that resonates with a segment of the Punjabi diaspora. Now, India sees this as a national security threat, and Canada, with its large Sikh population, becomes a focal point. The narrative gets murky, accusations of foreign interference, whispers of extremism. It all creates this fog of suspicion. What gets lost in the geopolitical chess match are the actual lives of Punjabi Canadians. They're Canadians first and foremost, contributing to society, building lives, but this cloud of political tension follows them. It's like walking a tightrope, trying to maintain ties to their heritage, their families back in Punjab, while navigating this minefield of political accusations. Suddenly, everyday actions, cultural events, even expressions of faith are viewed through a distorted lens. It's exhausting, it's isolating, and it's a reality for many. And let's be clear, criticizing a government's policy, advocating for self-determination, that's not extremism, that's called exercising your democratic rights. But when those rights are constantly painted as suspicious, as somehow un-Canadian, it creates a chilling effect. This is where things get dangerous, because silence doesn't equal agreement, it often equals fear. Fear of being labeled, fear of repercussions, fear of your loyalty being questioned. And in that silence, harmful stereotypes fester and real conversations about legitimate grievances get drowned out. Okay, let's talk about the internet, specifically the wild world of social media, because this is where things get amplified, distorted, and frankly, kind of scary. We all know social media can be a cesspool, right? But for marginalized communities, it can be a breeding ground for targeted harassment and hate. The Punjabi community is no stranger to this. Stereotypes about Sikhs, about Punjabis in general, they circulate online with alarming speed. And the algorithms, don't even get me started, they create these echo chambers where misinformation thrives and nuanced conversations go to die. Here's the thing about stereotypes, they're lazy, they're reductive, and they're incredibly sticky. They paint an entire community with a single brush, ignoring the diversity of thought, experience, and opinion within that community. When it comes to the Punjabi community, these stereotypes often revolve around extremism, violence, even criminality. We're talking about harmful tropes that have real-world consequences. They impact how people perceive them, how they're treated by law enforcement, even their job prospects. And the worst part, these stereotypes are often fueled by a lack of understanding about Sikhism, about Punjabi culture. Suddenly a turban, a kirpan, these articles of faith become symbols of suspicion, even fear. This is where education and representation become crucial. We need more voices from the Punjabi community sharing their stories, challenging these harmful narratives. We need allies who are willing to listen, to learn, and to amplify these voices. Because here's the truth. The Punjabi community is vibrant, diverse, and resilient. They're entrepreneurs, doctors, artists, activists, they're your neighbors, your colleagues, your friends. Their stories deserve to be told, and their voices deserve to be heard. Okay, so representation matters, right? We hear it all the time, and it's true. Seeing yourself reflected in media, in politics, in positions of power, it's a powerful thing. But here's the catch-22. Increased visibility can sometimes lead to a backlash. Think about it as the Punjabi community gains more prominence in Canada as they step into spaces they were historically excluded from. It disrupts the status quo. And for some, that's threatening. Suddenly there's this narrative that Punjabi Canadians are taking over, that their culture is somehow at odds with Canadian values. This fear-mongering often manifests as xenophobia, as discrimination, as a push to preserve some imagined Canadian identity that frankly never really existed. Let's be clear, Canada is not some monolithic culture. It's a nation built on immigration, on diversity, on the contributions of people from all over the world. To suggest that the success and visibility of one community comes at the expense of others is not only divisive, it's flat out wrong. The achievements of the Punjabi community should be celebrated, not feared. Their cultural contributions, their entrepreneurial spirit, their commitment to social justice, these are assets to Canadian society. But here's the thing, visibility without understanding can lead to misunderstandings. It's not enough to just see more Punjabi faces in the public sphere. We need to engage with their stories, their struggles, their perspectives. We need to move beyond superficial representation and towards genuine inclusion. Because true inclusion means creating a society where everyone feels seen, heard and respected, regardless of their background or beliefs. It means dismantling the systems of oppression that have historically marginalized certain communities. It means recognizing that our differences are our strength, not a threat. Let's talk about something that makes everyone uncomfortable: racial profiling. It's a reality for many communities of color, and the Punjabi community is no exception. When law enforcement disproportionately targets a specific group based on their race or religion, it erodes trust and creates a climate of fear. For Punjabi Canadians, this often manifests as increased surveillance, random stops and searches, and questioning that feels less about legitimate security concerns and more about fitting a profile. Imagine being treated like a suspect in your own community simply because of your appearance, your faith, your last name. This isn't just about individual experiences, although those experiences are incredibly valid and damaging. This is about a system that often operates on implicit bias, on preconceived notions about who is more likely to commit a crime. Now, when high-profile cases involve individuals from the Punjabi community, it feeds into these existing biases. Media coverage often amplifies stereotypes, focusing on ethnicity and religion in a way that fuels fear and suspicion. This creates a vicious cycle where increased scrutiny leads to more arrests, which then reinforces the perception that the community is somehow inherently prone to criminality. It's a dangerous and dehumanizing narrative. But here's the thing, holding individuals accountable for their actions is important, but it shouldn't come at the expense of an entire community's reputation. We need to be able to talk about these issues without resorting to harmful generalizations, without perpetuating stereotypes. This is where accountability and reform come in. We need to demand transparency and oversight from law enforcement. We need to address racial bias in policing, from recruitment and training to everyday interactions with the public. Because when a community lives under a constant cloud of suspicion, it erodes their sense of safety and belonging. Now, it's easy to get caught up in all the challenges, the discrimination, the negativity. But here's the thing about the Punjabi community. They're resilient AF. They don't just sit back and take it. They organize, they mobilize, they fight back. We're talking about a community with a long history of activism, of standing up for their rights and for the rights of others. From fighting for immigration rights in the early 20th century to challenging discriminatory laws, they've always been on the front lines of social justice movements, and that spirit of activism is alive and well today. And we see it in the organizations working to combat hate speech, to promote understanding of Sikhism, to empower Punjabi youth. We see it in the individuals who are raising their voices, sharing their stories, and demanding change. But here's the thing about allyship. It's not a spectator sport. It's about showing up, amplifying marginalized voices, and challenging injustice wherever you see it. It's about recognizing that the fight for social justice is interconnected. When one community is targeted, it threatens the fabric of our entire society. Solidarity isn't just a hashtag, it's a verb, and that's what gives me hope. Seeing the Punjabi community build bridges with other marginalized groups, standing together in the face of hate and discrimination. Because when we unite, when we recognize our shared humanity, that's when real change happens. To truly understand the experiences of the Punjabi community in Canada today, we need to take a trip back in time. Because the challenges they face aren't isolated incidents, they're rooted in a long and often painful history. Let's go back to the late 19th century when the first Sikh immigrants arrived in Canada. They faced discrimination, they faced prejudice, they were denied basic rights, all because they were seen as different. The story of the Komagata Maru, a ship carrying hundreds of Sikh immigrants that was denied entry to Canada in 1914, is a stark reminder of this dark chapter. These were people seeking a better life, fleeing poverty and persecution, only to be met with hostility and bigotry. And it didn't stop there. For decades, Punjabi Canadians faced systemic discrimination in housing, employment and education. They were denied the right to vote, the right to serve on juries, even the right to sponsor their families to come to Canada. These historical injustices have left a lasting impact, shaping the experiences of generations of Punjabi Canadians. The trauma of exclusion, of being told you don't belong, it doesn't just disappear, it's passed down, it manifests in different ways, and it continues to affect the community today. And let's be real, the legacy of colonialism, of racism, it doesn't just vanish overnight. It's woven into the fabric of our institutions, our policies, even our subconscious biases. That's why it's so important to learn from our past, to acknowledge the wrongs that were committed, and to actively work towards dismantling the systems that perpetuate inequality. Reconciliation isn't just about apologies, it's about taking concrete actions to address the root causes of injustice. It's about creating a future where everyone has an equal opportunity to thrive, regardless of their history or background. Understanding the targeting of the Punjabi community in Canada requires a nuanced approach that considers historical, political, social, and cultural factors. By fostering dialogue and understanding, we can work towards a more inclusive and just society for all. The Punjabi community's story is one of resilience, of resistance, and of immense contributions to Canadian society. It's a story that deserves to be heard, understood, and celebrated. And it's a story that reminds us that the fight for justice, for equality, for a truly inclusive Canada is far from over. But I believe that by working together, by challenging our own biases, and by amplifying marginalized voices, we can create a future where every community feels safe, respected, and valued.